Okay, so we're figuring out how to share our video, and in the meantime, we're just going to come over to Dr. Hunt, who's been so gracious to come and share with us, and she does such awesome work. Dr. Hunt, let's introduce you and what you're going to talk about today. You said uh, we're going to be talking about, this is a really interesting topic. Dr. Amy Hunt is the Chief Academic Officer from Park City School District in Utah. Fabulous district. So great, so grateful she's sharing with Tennessee and Kentucky today. She's going to talk about the bouquet of new health safety protocols, which we all know is a huge bouquet. So we're going to come back over to you, Dr. Hunt. Go ahead. Should I make you presenter?
Yeah, if you can do that, that would be great.
Okay, good. Now you're presenter.
Great.
There you go. Back to you.
See that. Okay. So first of all, thank you so much for the invitation to be here today. I recognize that every school district that may be participating really has a different experience about how they're approaching returning to school this year. Let me just start by saying, wow. I don't know another word to describe the situation we're in. 2020 has been quite a year, right? No matter where you hail from, really, I think that I could probably guarantee that you would agree with me that living through this particular year has been one of the most complex times that we've experienced in education. So just a little bit of context, I serve in Park City School District. We are a 5,000 student district in the mountains above Salt Lake City. We experienced COVID fairly early. This is because we open our doors to world travelers every year for winter sports. I think some may recall that we had the Winter Olympics here in 2002. Additionally, we host the International Sundance Film Festival, which occurred in January. So interestingly, the CDC came here to study COVID early on because we were one of the first places that had documented community spread of COVID-19 by February. So we closed for remote learning in early March, and we remained closed until the end of the school year. However, with a lot of work and some countywide face mandates through the summer, we actually returned for in-person learning this August, and additionally provided some remote and hybrid options for students. And we're still open at this time for face-to-face learning. Since the beginning of the pandemic, we've been doing everything we can to stabilize the learning environment for our students. But because we're now staring down the face of a new normal, it's really difficult sometimes to manage expectations. I have to admit, as an educational leader, I've had times where I felt like things just didn't feel quite right. Perhaps you can relate to that. So today I want to use an analogy of a floral bouquet to frame and explain our organization's approach to managing health and safety of our students and staff as we opened this year. Think about it for just a second. Where do you see floral bouquets? You see them at fancy parties and restaurants, hotels, and weddings. And we give bouquets to celebrate, to congratulate, thank, and uplift each other. The significance of the floral bouquet is not so much the flowers themselves, but the feeling of positivity and hope associated with them. We're not in there. We go. It's important that we understand and acknowledge that our core mission in education is to teach children. The nature of everything we do is rooted in people. Thus, as we continue to struggle opening schools with ever-changing guidance for schooling during a pandemic, we need to make sure that we create space for the people we serve to help them adjust and to move forward. Admittedly, we can't control every variable we're experiencing, but we can and we should plan for student learning with hope and positivity. So how do you organize and return for learning after a traumatic experience? Well, you start with first things first. In our floral analogy, we start with a vase. A vase is essential to provide structure. After all, the vase holds the flowers in a floral bouquet together in a nice, tight, aesthetically pleasing bundle. If we're going to have any success in continuing to provide nice, tight schooling opportunities during the challenges of COVID-19, we've got to focus on creating structure. And that structure's got to consider the physical and social emotional needs of people. So a nice tight structure that addresses social and emotional needs creates an environment where people can feel calm and supported. And a nice tight structure that addresses physical needs provides an environment where people can actually be healthy and safe. Needless to say, these are symbiotic. One really can't exist without the other. We really can't focus solely on physical details, such as changing a classroom routine to include frequent hand washing, and not acknowledge the anxiety that some might feel about the reasons the practice had to be put in place to begin with. So today I'm going to share some of the considerations that we made when it came to prepare for in-person learning to both ensure physical health and safety, as well as focus on social and emotional well-being. So let's talk first about creating a healthy and safe physical environment. In Park City School District, our approach to creating a healthy and safe physical environment for returning to school was to do what we do best, to teach. There's really no such thing as a COVID-free zone, and schools are no exception. Thus, our best hope at minimizing exposure was to make sure that our teachers and staff really understood how to create and maintain a safe environment. We believe the best thing that we could do was help them to understand how the virus spreads and then how to minimize that spread. You see, you really can't create an exhaustive list of every potential scenario that will help people know what to do for every moment that they may have issues during this schooling year. Context is really important. Let me give you an example. Early on, the CDC provided guidance that physically distancing at least 6 feet is recommended, but we're in schools. So how do you physically distance 30 student desks in a 900 square foot classroom? Undoubtedly, this is a variable that really can't be controlled. But we knew that if we provided our adults with an understanding of the virus, as well as a number of mitigation strategies, we could give them a sense of control. To do this, we focused on sharing information. Our pre-service training this year focused not only on professional development that was necessary to help teachers teach virtually or in a hybrid setting, but we also focused on creating an awareness around 7 strategies that could be layered to mitigate exposure to. For example, we broke down every area of the school and examined each and every strategy that we could use in those areas. In the classroom, for example, this looked like reducing group sizes, creating cohorts, limiting movement, spacing desks as far apart as possible, wearing face masks, washing hands frequently, all of those strategies. But the importance was layering those strategies together, providing our teachers and staff this structure of thinking about characteristics of how the virus spreads and what can be done to minimize that spread. Help them focus on what they could do rather than what they couldn't. We're trying to shift the focus from ideas like, I can't get these desks 6 feet apart, we're not safe, I shouldn't be teaching, to I can't get these desks 6 feet apart, but they're as far apart as possible. And my students will wear a face mask. And we will clean desk surfaces often. And, well, really, I could insert a number of health and safety protocols there. What we hear as common phrases are often true in experience. 2 phrases that kept resonating in my mind as we planned our return to school is knowledge is power. And the second was always know your why. Truly, we felt it was important to do more than just provide a list of protocols. Just as we expect for our students, we wanted to provide a deeper context and meaning that would guide our staff when the exhaustive list we tried to provide wouldn't cover an item or situation they were experiencing, and especially when in turn they would need to share and enforce health and safety protocols with their students. Another structure we needed to put in place was to be able to ensure a safe and healthy physical environment that focused on communication. Every district across the nation has had to write a return to school plan and share it with their community. As we prepared to share our plan, we realized we wanted to make sure we created a nice, tight communication that was easy to remember. We wanted our communication to convey that we understood mitigation strategies, and we wanted to help our community understand we were actually prepared to keep our students and staff safe. We decided to use a mnemonic, an intentional word that could convey security. So we chose the word ready. We then connected each letter of the word to ideas that described our layered mitigation strategy. So you'll notice that R referenced return for learning, both in person and remote. E was enhanced hygiene protocols. A for anyone with symptoms stays home. D for distancing measures, and Y for yes, added cleaning and disinfecting. This mnemonic gave us a simple, catchy way to discuss health and safety protocols rather than to provide an exhaustive list of items that really wouldn't be read and likely would not be fully understood. Additionally, we shared our 7 mitigation strategies in parent communications, in meetings, and in videos. I'm happy to report our strategies have been working. We have had 6 COVID-19 cases across our schools, all of which have been from outside exposure. Additionally, and importantly, these 6 positive cases have not caused additional positive cases in our staff or students in our schools. To give you some context, other local high schools in Utah are experiencing 80+ positive cases in their schools and have had to shift to hybrid schedules or full remote learning. At the same time that we focused on understanding layered mitigation strategies to ensure health and safety, we also focused on the social and emotional needs of our staff. Like all educators, we knew our staff would do whatever it takes to address the needs of students. But we also knew that might mean that they would put their own social and emotional needs aside. We knew that our educators had experienced significant challenges, even trauma, in the preceding months, and that they would be returning with a substantial amount of stress. As we returned to school, we wanted to make sure that we created awareness around their social and emotional needs. We knew that we needed to have a common understanding of behaviors that indicated they needed support. Further, we wanted to make sure our leaders had tools to recognize warning signs and engage in different and difficult conversations. We inspected our leave policies, we adjusted them to support our employees, we reviewed our employee support programs, and we created resource pages with self-care and wellness information. Our first step in creating that structured environment where adults can feel safe and emotionally secure was to acknowledge that teachers across the nation were experiencing heightened stress and emotional strain. Prior to COVID, nearly 60% of teachers in the United States reported their mental health was not good in 7 of the last 30 days. And 78% of teachers were feeling mentally and physically exhausted at the end of the day. And after COVID, 80% of all teachers reported feeling anxious, worried, exhausted, and depressed. We had to change this conversation from one of, hey, we're going to get through this, just hang in there, it's going to get better, trust us. That wasn't really going to be enough. So again, it made sense to start with our strength, to teach. We provided training for our staff and our leadership that included defining types of emotional responses and behaviors that they should look for related to social and emotional strain. It's important to be able to understand the things that we might be seeing. Compassion fatigue, for example, is the emotional and physical erosion that takes place when helpers, such as teachers, are unable to refuel and regenerate. Even teachers can reach a level of stress and anxiety that leaves them feeling apathetic. Vicarious trauma occurs for those who work with others who've experienced trauma, such as teachers who work with students in distress. Repetitive exposure to witnessing that trauma in others can cause teachers to feel that to alter their beliefs about the world. And burnout describes physical and emotional exhaustion that takes place when individuals feel powerless and overwhelmed. You're likely to be aware that one of the most important aspects of well-being is recognizing when you or someone you care about is experiencing unhealthy stress and anxiety. It's difficult, however, to talk about mental and emotional health and to know when to seek help for yourself or for others. Because we knew this school year would proceed with ongoing stress and strain, we knew it would be important for our staff to be aware of common warning signs and that we needed to provide information that would help them to see a signal and to be able to ensure that someone who needed help was supported. So we provided additional training for our school leaders. We asked our associate superintendent to provide information about warning signs of mental and emotional distress. We also gave leaders tools to reach out and engage with someone they believed they needed help. We even provided them with sentence starters to be able to have difficult conversations and additional resources to reach out to staff members they were concerned about. As our Chief Academic Officer, I really focused on working with our leaders to help them understand that less is more, and that it's important to focus their expectations and give themselves and their staff permission to set aside extraneous aspects of the work. We also provided ideas for them to build and maintain culture and climate, because quite literally, you can't come together to meet or socialize in the middle of a pandemic. Not only did we talk about our concerns for health and mental well-being, we also demonstrated it by revising and adding sick leave and wellness policies. We added a Wellness Wednesday in our school district and created an educator blog that was focused on self-care topics. As we move forward, we'll utilize these surveys to understand more about the emotional well-being of our staff, and we'll work to be more responsive to their needs. Really, this has been and continues to be a year that's about people first. Just as a vase in a container is meant to hold and nourish flowers, it's important to establish structures that hold and nourish people. Our return to school was heavily influenced by frequent reports of teachers walking away from their beloved profession because they feel powerless to control their health and to manage their feelings of stress and anxiety. As we move forward, this is going to continue to be a focus for our district. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Amy, this was amazing. And, you know, I was kind of hoping one of our speakers today would really touch on the social emotional side of this all, because I have to be honest, you know, and I'm going to watch for questions here, but everything has been going on. I'm sure a lot of people are going to agree with this. You know, the shutdown happened and it was a mad scramble. No one in education has really had time since that moment to stop and reflect. I mean, we've had many superintendents tell us their people are working, you know, 14, 16, 18-hour days. And over the summer, it didn't ease up. I mean, there was teachers who got to be quote unquote off, but not really, because everyone was lesson planning. And
Yeah.
And so there's been really no summer for education. There's been no summer for anyone. You know, the private sector is saying the same thing. Most companies that I've talked to they've been running faster than ever in the ed tech space. So when you don't have time to stop and reflect, you get the burnout phenomenon. You don't even feel it. You don't see it. You don't realize that you're crabby and upset, and you're just lashing out once in a while because you have had no chance to withdraw. It's sort of a reach and withdraw world, right? Like you go, and then you come back, and then you go, and then you come back. But there's no withdraw, and so there's no chance to rejuvenate. And I think this is a really important point. So we have a changed world, and I'm looking at educators being able to change their structure of time and space. They had to change space use to go mostly virtual, almost everybody. But they're going to have to lead that, like you're saying.
Mm-hmm. You know, and interestingly too, I want to acknowledge two things. One is that, you know, I live in Utah, and Utah has done some things prior to this pandemic that made this a simpler transition to remote learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of some of those policies that they have in place and some of the priorities that they've put in place that allowed us to move pretty quickly to focusing on things that were essential for us to be able to create a sense of control where there really wasn't any. What I do know about just leadership in general is that we're constantly preparing people for change. That's what continuous improvement is. Forcing people into a change never really promotes the kind of change that we were hoping for. COVID was a forced change, but now as leaders, we have an opportunity to really think about redesigning schools with the understanding that we're preparing people for those changes. COVID's an opportunity really for us to demonstrate that we want to bring our teachers through that process, that we want to protect their emotional state so that they can provide their best thinking in designing really personalized learning experiences for students moving forward. If we don't demonstrate to our educators that we're committed to their well-being and that we're committed and want them to, be a part of that piece moving forward, I don't see how we can. Computers are going to be able to do the heavy lifting for us to be able to make teaching and learning smarter and more effective, but we still are going to need facilitators of learning, and we're going to need committed people that are wanting to make a difference for students. If we as educational leadership right now can't demonstrate our commitment to them, then we can't expect that they're going to give back and commit to moving forward with a new way of personalizing learning for students.
Right, right. Well, I'm going to talk a lot about that restructure in the hybrid logistics hour. Maybe you could join us. I would sure hope so. If we don't want to take up your whole day, Dr. Hunt, but this has been an amazing presentation. I have Mr. Parler, who I think wants to make a comment. Final question. We have 1 minute left, Mr. Parler.
Well, I don't want to be the bad guy here, but as a really overwhelmed principal, we have been going through a lot of things, and we always talk about the students, even parents, teachers, social emotional support. But as you mentioned, the principals, like the school leaders, are expected to redesign the school, restructure everything, reframe this, reframe that. But I think this has to be brought up at every platform, how the school leaders should be supported effectively so they can meet all these expectations, because I don't think this is really fair. And as a principal, I have a really good, strong team, but this support is never in discussions. I don't know how it is in Utah, but in Ohio, the leaders are taking a lot, like they are carrying a lot, and unfortunately there is no enough. I'm not even talking about the technical stuff. Like, I have no one to sit down and vent in. Like, I have no one to sit down and share my feelings, how I am feeling, what is happening in my school. I am in charge of my 40 teachers, and I have to be in charge of their social emotional support as well. Yes, I agree, but who is in charge of my social emotional support? That's kind of bothering me a lot recently since the shutdown.
Yeah, and it makes sense. We had our administrators working all summer long, right? And one of the interesting pieces was that it was watching them talk and feel the way that you're describing that caused us to really put some thoughtful pieces in place for our educators. And at the same time that we put them in place for our educators, we do have some spaces for our principals to be able to come together and to share their concerns, right? We've created a lot of templates and tools for them to try to take a lot of the work off their plate. And we've told them repeatedly that right now we want them to feel that they have the permission to let some things go, right? And really just focus on getting through the day.
That's amazing, Dr. Hunt. I am really jealous now, because seriously, even with from the full virtual learning, we are transitioning into hybrid learning, and nothing is being provided. We are responsible to create our own plan. We are not even given that.
You know, if you would like, I'd be happy to share with you the template that we gave to our principals to think about every area of their school and help them very quickly put together their plan.
I would love that, Dr. Hunt. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I apologize for my voice. I'm quite overwhelmed recently. So that's why I just wanted to bring that up and maybe kind of be the voice for all the leaders. It is a challenge.
It's definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I will put my email in the chat.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. I think just being able to hear both of you say, you know, this is real. This is affecting a lot of people. Just the sense that we're all together in this is important. You know, we are a group. And Learning Council is here to bring us together and at least acknowledge that this is happening.
Scholastic Literacy Pro is a blended reading solution for grades K through 6 that provides educators a single tool to monitor student reading activity, comprehension, and progress. With 3 built-in assessments evaluating students' reading readiness, reading level, and comprehension, Literacy Pro provides real-time data and robust reports to help inform instruction in a meaningful way.
Welcome to Literacy Pro. First, you'll identify lowercase letters.
For emerging readers, the Scholastic Reading Readiness Assessment determines mastery of foundational skills. It informs teachers about their early learners' reading abilities across alphabet recognition, phonemic awareness, syllabication, blending, and decoding. The results from Scholastic Reading Readiness will help teachers determine which students may need additional support in selecting independent reading books. For students who have already mastered foundational reading, Literacy Pro includes the Scholastic Reading Measure, which provides a valid and reliable Lexile measure. In this adaptive assessment, students are asked to read passages and answer text-based multiple choice questions that show comprehension. Teachers can assign the Scholastic Reading Measure multiple times a year to monitor progress. At the end of the reading measure, students see their Lexile, and educators can see a roll-up of all their students' Lexiles as well as their growth over time. Literacy Pro also allows teachers to track both guided reading and Lexile levels for every student, supporting either instructional approach. Teachers can always use the data provided to confer with students and communicate with families about their child's progress. The final assessment in Literacy Pro are Think More comprehension checks. Think Mores are text-based quizzes that students complete after they read any ebook or the thousands of paperback books that have connections within Literacy Pro. Think Mores for Spanish language books are available in Spanish as well. During a Think More quiz, students are encouraged to return to the text for evidence. They can view their answers and misconceptions immediately and choose to retake the quiz with a different set of questions. Think Mores provide valuable insight into whether students are comprehending what they read and provide detailed data on 10 higher-order thinking skills. Teachers can view every single question the student answered along with their misconceptions. Scholastic Literacy Pro's assessments were designed with the student in mind, while providing educators essential, authentic data to better inform their daily instruction.